Deputy or Chairman, thanks for the interview.
No problem at all.
Your sub-panel is conducting your scrutiny sub-panel is conducting a review and calling for witnesses to give evidence. Can you tell us what you're looking for in the way of evidence and who that evidence comes from?
The really important part of this is that anyone who feels that they have input that would be useful can come to scrutiny and give evidence either privately or publicly if they don't mind that being published, and we respect that, absolutely. But we have to have information, because what we're looking for is to try and see, can you see change? Even if it's small change, can you see it? Or can you see large change? Or can you come and say, actually no, in everything that's happening, I can't, and these are the reasons why. Because we come from this from one viewpoint, the political viewpoint, and we get a lot of input from departments and officers and ministers who say that we're trying to do this, we're trying to do this. So we see there is evidence that efforts are being made, but the reality is, are they being seen at the people
ground level?
Absolutely, ground level. I was looking for the right phrase there, but you're absolutely right, and that's what we want to see. And it is difficult. We have had submissions, and I want to make it really clear that they can be private submissions. I have good faith in our scrutiny officers. I think they work incredibly hard. They're separate from the Government of Jersey departments in that way, and they work for the process of scrutiny.
I don't want to preempt my questions, I suppose. I want to go on to ITV Channel Television, who have a long history of broadcasting fake news to its viewers, or at least left them with a view that all those who gave evidence to the independent Jersey care inquiry will be receiving a letter asking them to participate in your review. I believe they've refused to broadcast a correction to this, another thing they have a long history of. So would you like to take this opportunity to correct their broadcasts, as there might be, like me, might be people who think, well, I haven't received a letter, so the review panel doesn't want evidence from me.
No, that's not the case. We wouldn't have sent letters individually, because first of all, some people may have given evidence privately, and it wouldn't be for us to be therefore writing to, may not be at the same address. We would never do that. The letters may have been sent to some organisations, and it's a lot easier to send to organisations because they are by definition organisations and public. So what I would say to any individuals who want to give evidence, yes, you are more than welcome, and we would encourage you to write or contact Scrutiny, and I'm sure you can put the links to the website and so on there.
I'll do that,
or email to give evidence, or give us a call, so that we can hear your opinions on where you think we're going here. Look, we spent an enormous amount of money on a care inquiry. It has had a huge impact in many, many ways. Yes, there needs to be more change, but what we need to do is we need to know, where are we now? Because we're hearing so much about it going on.
Well, my particular interest is with recommendation 7, the Jersey Way. Of course, the Jersey Way doesn't only refer to the alleged cover-up, sweeping under the carpet of child abuse. It pretty much is the covering up and carpet sweeping of any and all crimes, particularly by and for those who are, shall we say, connected. If somebody's got evidence of judicial political corruption, not necessarily child abuse, I'm taking it you'd want to hear from them also.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, in terms of this scrutiny report, we are trying, you have to focus on what outcomes we can actually have for the report. So, for example, if evidence comes that, as you're talking, that the Jersey Way, that element of the Jersey Way is not changing, we can report on that, yes, of course. In terms of individual cases, again, it's really, really difficult, and that's one of the things that we're trying to change.
But obviously...
And the Jersey Way is cultural. It's one of those things, it's difficult to pin down, but everybody knows it's there. You know, and there are issues, and there are so many different issues that we need to address. The separation of the judiciary from the States Assembly, for example, tried to be addressed a number of times, still haven't got there. There are issues. I personally think things like electoral reform are part of that, because we. But
they're not part of this review. In fairness, like, so I want to try and stick to the review that you're doing here. Is so, like, I'm trying to get across is, look, it's not only people who have been denied justice and probably cover up and corruption and sweeping under the carpet to do with child abuse. There's it's a much wider scope than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, if somebody does have that kind of information, would your panel want to hear from them?
It's difficult to say what evidence will be useful or not. So we would say not useful. It's difficult to say what evidence is directly relevant to the care inquiry report or not until we hear it. And so yes, of course we want to hear. It also gives that sort of generic evidence about the Jersey Way, which we've talked about, that cultural change not shifting, and I think that's important. So the answer is yes. If we're going to get to where we want to be, so that children are safe on this island, that previous situations are dealt with appropriately, and individuals are taken accountable for what's happened in the past, and that survivors can rebuild their lives, with the support, and rebuild that trust, which I know is a problem.
What will the status of the evidence? What will it be that you receive? I understand if people give evidence to your panel in person, then they will have privilege. A scrutiny panel here, in that they can't be prosecuted for what they say. Does this privilege, if it exists still, extend to any written submissions you receive? So what is the legal status of any?
Written submissions to the panel can be kept private to the panel if people want them to be.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about private. If I want mine to be open online, or anybody else wants it to be open up, what is the legal status of that document? Can people be?
The first thing that we would do is talk to you about the evidence you're giving, and we would want to ensure that we don't put anybody in a difficult situation. I'm not a lawyer. I say that from the beginning. I am not a lawyer, and so I would say to you, I would hope that yes, you can give any evidence that you want to scrutiny, because we do have privilege, but I would want to double check.
But you're not sure of the status yet of the evidence you're given.
It's because of the question you've asked, in terms of saying, if you had, for example, named individual with a particular allegation, where would that take us and what would happen with a court case? The answer is I don't know, because I'm not a lawyer. So I would want to be really careful, as much as anything, so that if there was anything that happened in the future, it wasn't ruined because of what you've given as evidence to scrutiny in the public domain. Do you see what I mean?
Well,
it's
I think
about protecting witnesses as well. But that's a very, very good question.
I think it needs to be made clear, because people will be thinking, well, I want to give evidence, but I'll be coming on to this in a second. But,
that's a very good question, and that's.
But people are going to say, well, look, this hasn't changed because this is going in on the law officers department, the attorney general's office, or something like that. So, and
that's absolutely valid, and that's and you're right, and but that's relevant to the report that we're doing. So yes, absolutely, I can see no problem with that.
Okay, can people give you evidence anonymously? I mean, we touched on this, bearing in mind the fear factor element of the Jersey Way. How can they give this evidence with an assurance from you and your panel that they won't face any persecution and retaliation?
Well, we would desperately hope that people can give evidence privately and anonymously without that happening. The evidence will come to a scrutiny officer, come to myself. Without giving anything away, I have and will meet people privately, and their evidence may come in the form of me making a few notes from them, and I might say to them to sign or verify, for example, because they're not, as much as anything, see, where I'm coming from is that I don't want people to feel uncomfortable about talking about difficult situations that they've been through in the past. I want them to be open to be able to say it. In terms of the comeback from that, for me, that really cannot happen, because the scrutiny's got to work.
I suppose
but
the question
I understand
is,
where you're coming from.
What is there to prevent that?
What there is to prevent it is that everything's kept within a file that only I and the scrutiny officer can see. In fact, only the scrutiny officer can see at some point.
Because there is that, as we said, that worry, that fear factor that's still alive and well in Jersey at the minute, and people think, well, God, if I say this, I'm going to end up losing my job, they're going to come after me. What assurances can you give to people? Say, look, they're not going to come after me.
There has to be a point where we rebuild trust if we're going to get anywhere here. There has to be a point where politically and in terms of the processes that we undertake, particularly with scrutiny, and I think scrutiny is so important for this island, in terms of holding his politicians to account in a really valid way and in an evidence-based way, there has to be a point where there is a step forward in that trust. And all I can say is that I hope that we can do that.
But I think we can't be naive here, can we? I mean,
no, absolutely.
And people are worrying that fear factor is still alive and well in Jersey. That if somebody comes out, gives you evidence, I think the establishment are going to come after me, the law officers are going to come after me, the Attorney General is going to come after me, and I think assurances need to be given, saying, look, you're safe, no one's going to come after you.
I believe that to be the case. I believe that we can, in scrutiny, take evidence and use that evidence anonymously, anonymise it from the very beginning of that evidence.
I just want to get on to the closing date for submissions is this Friday the 16th. Will you be holding public hearings after this date so people can either elaborate on their written submissions or just give evidence without a written submission? Could I come along and give you oral evidence rather than, or anybody come and give you oral evidence rather than
they can, and it depends a great deal on the amount of evidence that we get in the first place. But remember as well that the care inquiry will be reporting back soon too, and I think that will be very interesting. The beauty of a review panel as opposed to a straight scrutiny panel is we have flexibility in what we can do. Also, if you're going to produce a report, you've got to have some deadlines to get to, then move on and produce the report. Otherwise, what we're going to get is people will say, oh, you never finished a report ever. If I'm honest, it was our idea to say that we will publish quarterly reports rather than just an end-of-year report, because we thought it should be active and go along. Now, how good or bad those reports are, we open ourselves up for, and people can say, oh, actually, but that's what we're trying to do, and it's about that communication. So, yes.
Okay, Chairman, I appreciate your thanks for the interview, and I hope people will come forward and give evidence to your inquiry.
Please do. And can I just say one thing at the end as well? I said at the beginning about the process of scrutiny having, if we are going to genuinely hold a government to account, the government itself has to have a process that it listens to and is public. So when we do those scrutiny hearings and we give ministers a bit of a difficult time, it's very healthy, I think, because we've got to hold people account, and that engagement with scrutiny to whatever level that you feel comfortable with is appreciated by us and is appreciated by the people who are working on the panel, and I do believe that the more that we can do with that, the more chance we've got of making the changes that we need. So I would encourage people. I hope that's all right.